Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
I'll get the guns, the drugs from my generation. I'll take the fall, the state, and across the nation. And it's a sin, the guns, the fake, the fraud, the messing with me. Come on, come on, come on, let's get it on.
And here we are once more, is the Hold 1005 podcast. I am your host, Robbie S. And once again, unfortunately, my co-host, the hostess with the mostest, Brandy, is not here. Personal matters had to be attended to. She will not be on this week. However, we will hopefully see her next week, and we'll be talking about wrestling, geek culture, pop culture, your culture, my culture, everyone's culture. And it'll be a good time. Until then, I'm here, and you guys are going to have to put up with me for the next 58, 59 minutes. Anyway, let's start off with a little bit of geek culture, because I've recently stumbled across a couple of comic books, more specifically Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic books, courtesy of Boom Studios. Now, these comic books have been out for a couple months now, and I've been holding off on picking them up, mostly for financial reasons. I didn't know how much these would cost on eBay, because there really aren't a whole lot of comic book stores where I live. Unfortunately, they weren't too expensive on eBay. I believe I got each one for about $7. I got two of them: Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 0 and number 1. I read them both today, and I must say that these are extremely entertaining reads, very modern takes on a show that aired during the early to mid-90s. These two comic books focus quite a bit on the Green Ranger, Tommy Oliver, shortly after his spell cast by Rita Repulsa was broken. So it's him kind of adjusting to normal teen life. And it's interesting because you didn't really get to see that during the show. I mean, you got to see Tommy, converse with his new friends, but you never really got to see him cope with being the Green Ranger from an evil standpoint, at least not until like the Green Candle came up, but that's neither here nor there. I like that we got a bit of a darker take on the character, and what I really liked about this comic books was that even though it is about a series that took place during the early to mid-90s, there are modern takes that were added as well. For example, you have Tommy and Kimberly texting each other in class with emojis and all. You have Billy talking about sending the other teens push notifications. Bulk and Skull have their own podcast, Power Rangers themed podcast, no less. I like these comic books a lot. I'm very happy that Boom Studios has been able to sell 100,000 units. And it seems like we're going to be getting more of these comic books. They just recently announced that there's going to be a solo comic series for the Pink Ranger coming up, I believe in May. So be on the lookout for that. I certainly will, because these are, like I said, very good comic books. And I think one of the reasons why they sold as many copies as they did was because there are a lot of variant covers. Variant covers are not exactly uncommon in the comic scene, but there have been a lot of variant covers for these Power Rangers comics. And people collect them. Like, just, they're hardcore into getting to variant covers. If you're one of those people, more power to you. Hope you collect them all. But the thing is, comic books is not really my forte, so I can't really speak in that sense. What I can speak about, however, are things like wrestling and video games, which I'd like to get into a little bit. This past Sunday, I completed Twilight Princess HD, the new Zelda game / remake that came out recently. I finished it this past Sunday, and while I had a lot of fun with it, it is one of those cases where, and I think a lot of gamers can relate, there's an emptiness that comes about when you finish a video game that you really like, and sometimes you stop yourself from finishing it, like you put it off for a while. I remember back when Okami came out on the Wii, I played that for several hours, like many, many hours sunk into that game. And I was just nearing the final boss battle, and then I just stopped playing. I just stopped playing for like a couple of weeks since then, not because the game was bad or because I was stuck on anything, but just because I didn't want the experience to end. Because I know when the experience ends, when the game is beaten and the credits roll, I know that I can't really play that game again, at least not for a long time. You know, a lot of games kind of have different replay values, so replaying a game, it varies from case to case. So, uh, that's my little aside as a gamer. Twilight Princess HD was a lot of fun. Hopefully, I'll find another game to fill my time. It's one of those things where I'm kind of jealous of Brandy because right now she's playing Pokemon Shuffle, and she's been addicted to that game, and it makes me very proud as a boyfriend slash fellow gamer to see her so engrossed in video games. And while we're on the subject of video games, I'd like to offer formal congratulations to Austin Creed, aka WWE's Xavier Woods, because this past Monday, his YouTube gaming channel, Up Up Down Down, actually achieved 400,000 subscribers. And now that is a big number, especially if we consider that this is not only a video game YouTube channel, but a video game YouTube channel run by a professional wrestler. It's kind of an anomaly that you don't see. I mean, other wrestlers have their own YouTube channels, shoot interviews or general interests or whatever, but nothing that was ever specifically focused on video games. And this 40,000 subscriber news is tremendous. But then again, it's not terribly surprising when you consider the sort of content that Up Up Down Down has offered. Austin himself is very charismatic. His personality comes out through the show, and he's also very knowledgeable about games in general. I mean, all you have to do is watch one of his New Day promos on TV, and you can kind of hear him drop references to video games. Like just this past Monday on Raw, he dropped a Katamari reference, and when I first heard that, I had to do a double take because you don't hear people talk about Katamari, but he did, and that's one of the things I respect a lot about him. As far as the show goes, though, another reason why it became as popular as it did, at least in my opinion, was that he doesn't do the show by himself. He'll bring on fellow wrestlers, commentators, announcers, referees, etc., as guests to play games. I distinctly remember Kyle Edwards, one of the backstage personalities, having a segment where he was playing Doom, that first-person shooter from the mid-'90s that I am a big fan of. And another thing that makes that show so much fun from a presentation standpoint is that the guests themselves are given fun little nicknames as well. For example, Bailey is called Pogo, Sasha Banks is called the Boss, Summer Rae is called Stretch, Paige has my favorite one, the Glampire. These little nicknames kind of help give the superstars their own personalities because while wrestling fans know them by name, I can't imagine that a lot of gamers would know them because wrestling and video games, while there is some sort of cross-pollination as far as that goes, the two aren't exactly interchangeable. Like the two audiences are not exactly the same. I think that's probably the best way I can put it. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Up Up Down Down. Some of his videos actually helped me make big purchases. It was actually his Let's Play of Until Dawn on PS4 that finally convinced me to buy the game later on because I saw videos of it before. I was kind of on the fence about buying it, but then I saw Austin play the game and I'm like, okay, I gotta get this game. I gotta try this out because if he's talking so positively about it, if he's having so much fun with this game, clearly I must be having it too. And I think it speaks volumes about just how much power YouTubers are having, especially in video games, because I think more and more people are turning away from GameSpot, IGN, Kotaku, traditional video game news outlets. And I think there are a lot of reasons for that, and I can go on and on about why I think that's the case. But more and more people are turning away from the traditional publications and going the route of YouTubers because not only is there's this sense of immediacy when it comes to YouTube videos, but you get the feeling that the people playing these games are not trying to BS you. You get the feeling that they're actually telling you what they think, and what you see is what you get. And that's all I can really ask for as a gamer. Because let me tell you something, gaming is not cheap. It is not an inexpensive hobby. When you pay $60 a pop for a game, you want to make sure that your money is going to the right place. So I'm very happy that we have YouTube, and I'm happy that channels like Up, Up, Down, Down have been able to amass the audiences that they've had. And that's about as much as I want to talk about on the video game front. That might come up later on in the show, but for now, let's focus a little bit more on the wrestling because I think that's what most people uh, tune into the show to see or to hear about wrestling. First piece of news that struck me was about former WWE talent Kurt Angle. Uh, Reportedly, he met with Triple H. The two met last weekend at the Arnold Sports Festival in Columbus, Ohio, which baffled me because, according to rumors, Kurt Angle was kind of lobbying to get back to WWE, and he was talking to Vince McMahon to sort of see about a return. And Vince told him that Triple H was in charge of the talent relations, and Triple H was upset that Angle would go behind his back to sort of get this return rolling. Again, this is all hearsay. You know, nothing that I'm saying in this respect is cited. It's mostly rumors. Um, what isn't a rumor, though, and Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer newsletter confirmed this, was that the two did meet. Kurt Angle and Triple H met at the festival, and they did speak, but there's been no clear word as to what they discussed. The two were there at the festival for different reasons. Angle was inducted into the International Sports Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Kurt. And Triple H was on site to actually produce video content for WWE. And actually, I think one of those videos came up during Raw and on YouTube where he and Corey Graves shared the ring with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So both of them were at the festival for different reasons. Once again, as far as the reason why those two met, there could have been a number of reasons, and a couple of different theories have been floating around. One possible theory was Kurt Angle supposedly going into the WWE Hall of Fame, which wouldn't surprise me. I mean, after all, the guy has had a storied career, you know, a former multi-time world champion, King of the Ring winner, you know, the only Olympic gold medalist to compete in WWE during that time. But as much as I want to see Kurt Angle inducted, I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think WWE has their 2016 class decided, and it's not going to be so easily adjusted. That doesn't mean that he can't go in the 2017 or 2018 class. I think that he would make a perfect headliner, especially for wrestling fans back in the early to mid aughts when Kurt Angle was very popular in WWE. Another reason why those two, Angle and Triple H, might have spoke was because of a potential on-air role for Angle as a manager. Since I don't think he's going to be able to wrestle, you know, given the state of his neck, his back, his body in general, I find it hard to believe that Angle would be able to pass a wellness test. With that said, Kurt Angle has spoken quite highly of the American Alpha, Chad Gable in particular, and he's been talking a bit about sort of reforming Team Angle with those two guys. I would like to see that. I think that would be a very good idea. It would sort of help push Gable and Jordan as this legitimate tag team, outside of being just a couple of really good wrestlers that the Full Sail crowd in NXT gets behind. Another reason why Angle might have been there, might have been talking to Triple H, the possible production of WWE Network content or maybe a DVD release. It wasn't too long ago that WWE Network released in Japan. The network is growing. And in order to sustain that kind of growth, you're going to need more content. And I'd like to think that Kurt Angle, being part of a deal, could help bolster said content. You could have Kurt Angle give interviews, maybe have his own greatest hits collection on the network. And trust me, there are a lot of candidates for that collection. And hey, a DVD release sort of a biology or biography, I should say, of Angle, along with a number of handpicked matches. I could see that happening. I could see Angle being a big asset from a content related standpoint. But then again, maybe the two didn't talk for business reasons. Maybe it was just a case of two former colleagues being in the same place at the same time, and they just decided to shoot the breeze. I mean, I know that the rumor is the two have heat with one another, but once again, they're rumors. It's possible that they are true, but at the same time, um, news in, just news in general has this tendency to blow up over the course of time without a whole lot of big facts. So it's possible that us as fans have blown the situation out of proportion, and maybe there is a solid professional relationship between both sides. Maybe we just don't know for sure. Um, I do hope that Kurt Angle does have a spot in WWE somewhere down the road, because I think that fans during that time period, the early to mid aughts, would love to see him back, and he could introduce an entire generation to his work that he produced in the past. Because I think that when you show people good wrestling, regardless of what the time period that it transpired in, you're going to grab their attention. There really is no better way to put it. So, on that note, we'll turn to a bit of negative news. Well, very negative news, I should say. An update to the seemingly ever-growing injury report in WWE. Neville was injured this past Monday on Raw during a match with Chris Jericho. I believe Neville attempted a baseball slide move between the legs of Jericho, but during the slide, Neville broke his ankle and shin bone, and somebody on Twitter posted a video of the incident in slow motion, because on TV it was very quick, it was very sudden, you didn't really catch it. You'd have to have a very keen sense of sight to pick it up. But somebody recorded the clip, slowed it down, and posted it on Twitter, and you can kind of see Neville's leg bending at a 90-degree angle, and it was gruesome when I saw it. It almost reminded me of Sid Vicious's break in 2001, if anyone remembers that. Granted, Neville's injury was not as gruesome, but still, it's one of those moments where you just cringe because you can't imagine what kind of pain this guy was in, especially because Neville continued to wrestle on that bad leg, even to the point where he performed a Hurricane Rana. But it was clear that during this period, his speed was impaired. He wasn't wrestling at the pace that that you'd expect of him. Anyway, after this event, Jericho called an audible. He went for a cover. Charles Robinson counted 1, 2, but didn't count 3. Jericho stood up, shoved Robinson, which caused the DQ. Jericho lost. Neville won. And I think that if the match had gone to plan, I would think that Neville would tap to the walls of Jericho, or maybe have been pinned after the code breaker. We don't know. We don't know. Now, as far as Neville's injury is concerned, a broken ankle, broken shin bone, usually injuries like this take about a year or so to heal, including rehab. So while we don't know the specifics as to how long Neville will be out, a timetable as to when he can return, it's pretty much a given that Neville will be missing WrestleMania on April 3rd. Now, this is unfortunate for a number of reasons. Chief among them, the idea that Neville was supposed to be competing in a multi-man match for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. The rumor was that Kevin Owens would be defending against Sami Zayn, who just made his main roster debut, The Miz, Dolph Ziggler, and Neville. Of course, Neville will no longer be the case, given the injury, and it's even sadder because this would have been Neville's first WrestleMania, and it's not like Neville cracks under pressure. It's not like he's not used to big-time matches. I mean, the guy main evented a number of NXT TakeOver shows, even the first one, NXT Arrival, against Bo Dallas in that ladder match, which was pretty good. So it's not like Neville would have choked. I'm sure he would have done well, very well. He would have been able to pull off big spots, because when it comes to big matches where a number of competitors are involved, you're going to need at least one or two people who can pull off these death-defying maneuvers, and of course Neville would rank very highly on that list. After the news broke, WWE posted a video on their YouTube channel about Neville's injury. Basically, he was on a gurney having his leg examined, and he was telling the guys checking on him, like, please don't cut the boot. And for those who don't know, WWE hires their wrestlers as independent contractors by title, meaning that they have to pay for just about everything from hotels and rental cars to food and gear. So it makes sense that he wouldn't want his boot cut. I mean, I can't imagine gear is that cheap, not even for WWE talent. Anyway, he's having his leg checked on. Charles Amann, the doctor, is pushing down on different points of his leg, and basically Amann told Neville in no uncertain terms that his leg was broken, and just Neville's reaction to it broke my heart, because he kind of just leaned back with his head, with his face in his hands, and he was in tears because he's told that he had a broken leg, he'd have to take time off, time on the shelf, when if you're a professional wrestler, or any athlete for that matter, time off is the absolute worst thing that could happen. It's probably the biggest enemy of anybody who's in sports. With that said, I think that a positive spin should be given, because maybe, just maybe, this could be a blessing in disguise, because ever since coming to the main roster, Neville hasn't done much of anything. I mean, yes, on NXT, he was a former tag team champion, a former NXT champion, the longest reigning NXT champion, I should say. So, you would expect someone like him to come to the main roster with this big fanfare. And while he got a bit of hype early on, it seemed to have died down since then. And Neville really hasn't done much. He's kind of been meandering through the mid-card. So one could argue that a bit of time away could help Neville come back with a bit of renewed focus, as well as a more defined character, because apart from being a stellar wrestler and somebody who's not afraid to take big risks, we don't know a whole lot about the guy. I think if you were to ask a casual WWE fan what Neville's personality was, or what his motives are to be a superstar, I don't think they would be able to answer. And I think that's a big problem when you're talking about characters on a television show. So while I wish Neville the speediest of recoveries, hope that he gets better and comes back better than he was before, I hope that this time is used by Neville and WWE as a whole to sort of help build him up once again and give him more purpose, a focus, a reason to come back and challenge for one of the major titles. Because I think that after the hard work that he put into NXT, I would like to think that a championship would be in his future. And on that note, we will be taking a short few-minute break. When we come back, we will be talking a little bit more about wrestling, from WWE to New Japan Pro Wrestling. This is the Hold 1005 podcast. Don't go anywhere.
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario? Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo.
And we are back to the Hold 1005 podcast. I hope that you guys took some time to relax, take a seat, maybe grab an expensive soda, because apparently that's something my little brother likes to do these days, just get fancy sodas and bring them back. We are back, and we are going to talk a little bit more about professional wrestling. Before we get into some of the more important news pieces, I want to sort of draw attention to a certain WWE Network program called The Edge and Christian Show that totally reeks of awesomeness. Yes, that is the real title, and yes, it is just as off-the-wall insane as you might expect. The first episode of the show, I was not completely sold on it. I mean, I saw that there was potential there, but it missed more often than not. But I think as time went on, the show has become more entertaining, more zany, more quick-witted. And I think that this episode might have been the best. This episode that aired after Raw this past Monday. The theme of this episode was spring break. And there was quite a bit of skin showing. Not necessarily for the better. One of these segments at the end of the show was Edge and Christian made a comment to the effect of, WWE fans, the male fans, the divas wrestle in scantily clad clothing. So for the ladies, why don't we count down the top 5 wrestlers that have posed nude? Top 5 male wrestlers that have posed nude. And now I'm sort of looking at this going, okay, this might be interesting, because I didn't really think a lot of wrestlers posed nude, at least on the male side. But, they're going down the list of, Goldust, Shawn Michaels, Blue Meanie. Apparently Blue Meanie, was just bearing all during an episode of ECW, which I had no idea about. And now they get to the number 1 choice. And I'm like, okay, Shawn Michaels in Playgirl wasn't number 1, then what was? And the camera pans down, and there's butt-ass naked Tommy Dreamer with the ECW championship covering his junk. And to say that I needed bleach after this moment would have been kind of an understatement. But I think Christian said it best. I don't know what's scarier, Tommy Dreamer naked or Tommy Dreamer with a championship. I like moments like this on the show that just kind of just veer off into, territory that you didn't think WWE would approve of, but apparently they did. Another thing that you wouldn't think they would approve of on the show was, will WWE mention it? Was another segment, and the guest on that segment was the phenomenal AJ Styles. And what we learned from that show was that while WWE will mention Bullet Club, a wrestling faction outside of WWE, they will not mention the wrestling company that AJ Styles wrestled for from 2002, I should say, to 2014, which was, of course, TNA. I love this show now because it seems like it finally found its groove as sort of like this variety show, sort of akin to what you'd find on MTV during the early 90s. And that's really what it is. It's sophomoric, it's goofy, it's kind of childish at points, and has vulgar moments. So if you are a fan of those things, if you're a fan of that type of humor, this show is for you. It comes on after every Raw. New episodes are kind of scattered, I think. Hopefully we get more of these because Edge and Christian know how to bring the jokes, and they know how to scar your childhood for life. And on that note, we will be going into a bit of wrestling news. What caught my eye yesterday was the Raw pre-show. Now, for those who don't know, on the network before Raw, there is a pre-show segment that's hosted by Scott Stanford, David Otunga, Corey Graves, and Booker T. And what happened last week on the Raw pre-show was that Booker T was upset when Scott Stanford made a reference to G.I. Bro, which is, to longtime wrestling fans, Booker T's previous moniker in WCW when he was with the Misfits in Action. Basically, he wore camo. His face was covered in army paint. He was basically a giant toy soldier come to life. Let's put it that way. And probably not the most flattering memory for Booker T. Anyway, Booker T was not happy when Stanford made that reference, and he wasn't happy this week either because Stanford kicked off the show announcing everyone, and when he got to Booker, he said that Booker puts the stink in stink eye. And almost immediately, Booker started to approach Stanford with this look on his face like he was ready to destroy this man. Graves kind of had to hold Booker back from causing any damage because I'd have to imagine that if Booker got his hands on Stanford, that we might have witnessed the first ever murder on the network. But there's a bit of an intrigue to this segment because while last week's incident with the G.I. Bro thing wasn't scripted, it was kind of off the cuff. There are many people who believe that this week's segment with the stink eye was scripted, as if it was created by WWE themselves to help drum up interest for the pre-show so that more people will tune into the network to watch it. And I think it worked. You know, people on Square Circle talk about it, people on Tumblr talked about it, and I think once you get the ball rolling in that respect, when you have people going on about the big news or news that might have flown under the radar, people become privy to it. They're more likely to tune in to see what's going to happen next. I just hope that they don't go too far with this because WWE has a very good chance of running things through the ground, sort of letting them go on longer than they probably should. A bit of positive news, though. The WWE Hall of Fame class of 2016, the latest inductee has been announced. Former WWE Women's Champion Jacqueline. Fox Sports actually broke the story that she'll be joining the Hall of Fame this year. And not only that, she will be inducted by former SmackDown GM, former WWE referee, former WWE wrestling manager, Teddy Long. So he'll be making his WWE return, at least for one night, to induct his longtime friend Jacqueline, which I think is more than well-deserved because, in my opinion, she is one of the toughest ladies in wrestling, not just WWE, but in all of wrestling. And you also have to consider the things that she accomplished during her time in the company. You know, she won the women's championship 2 times. She was the only female member of the Acolyte Protection Agency alongside Bradshaw and Farouk. And probably more noteworthy, she was the only woman to hold the Cruiserweight title in WWE. Now, keep in mind I said in WWE because wrestling historians will tell you that Medusa won the WCW Cruiserweight title back in '99, and Daphne won it in 2000. So Jacqueline was technically the third woman to hold that championship. Still, big accomplishment on her part, and it furthers her legacy as one of the toughest ladies in wrestling. But as a younger fan who was sort of getting into wrestling, I remember Jacqueline for being one of the more voluptuous women in wrestling. I mean, she was tough, no doubt about it, but she was very easy on the eyes, let's put it that way. I remember Capital Carnage, that UK pay-per-view in '98, where Jacqueline was on Tim White's shoulders. Sable kind of came up behind Jacqueline and just ripped her top off. Now keep in mind that there was nothing underneath said top, so the minute it came off, Jacqueline's tatas were exposed to the UK crowd, but it was censored on TV. So if you were watching on television at the time, you'd be treated to a big black bar over Said Tatas, while the UK crowd got a bit of an eyeful for this. Uh, that's one of those memories I think a lot of people remember during that time because the Attitude Era was built, at least in some part, on sex appeal. And while Jacqueline might not have been remembered for being one of the eye candy pieces in WWE, she was definitely easy on the eyes. So yes, Jacqueline's going into the Hall of Fame, class of 2016. Congratulations to her. And I believe they're going to be announcing Stan Hansen officially as a member, maybe next week or the week after. So be on the lookout for that. And now that we are away from WWE news, let's focus across the seas to New Japan Pro Wrestling because the New Japan Cup concluded on the 12th, which was this past Saturday. Rather, I should say the semifinals and the finals took place during that show. The first of the semifinals was Tetsuya Naito facing off against Toru Yano. And when I saw this match on the card, I was like, there's no way this match lasts longer than like 4 minutes. I was kind of right because it actually lasted under 3 minutes. Toru Yano came out with a chair, tried to use it to score an easy victory. Naito used his own tricks against him and pinned Yano to advance to the finals. This was really a nothing match. I think that it was just designed to give Naito an easy win. And if you're a fan of Yano's antics, which I know a lot of fans are, chances are you got a laugh out of this. And I really think that's all you can ask for. The second of the semifinals match, the more superior match of the two, was Hiroki Goto facing off against New Japan signee Michael Elgin. This was a much better match. Both men exhibited brute strength, especially in Elgin's case, and very hard strikes. And I've seen this match a number of times before. I've seen it during the G1 Climax last year. I saw it during the Ring of Honor Field of Honor show last summer. So it's not like this is a new match. I've seen it before. That doesn't mean that it wasn't entertaining because it was quite good. These two work extremely well together. And I'm very happy that Elgin's getting more focus, that he actually made it this far into the tournament. Nonetheless, Michael Elgin was defeated by Hiroki Goto, meaning that Goto would face off against Naito in the finals. And while the Goto-Elgin match was good, the Naito-Goto match in the finals was tremendous, especially from a storytelling standpoint, because here you have Goto, somebody who is a good wrestler, who has a decent following, but has trouble sort of winning the big one. The last big title that he won was the Intercontinental title last year, which he lost to Nakamura only after a couple of defenses. So it's not like Goto has nothing to prove. I think he has more to prove than a lot of people would assume. Because when you think about the people that he's trained with, guys like Katsuyori Shibata, Tanahashi, etc., they've managed to rise to the occasion much faster than Goto, I think. And I can imagine that sticks in his craw a bit. And then you have Naito, who has sort of had a career resurgence ever since his excursion to Mexico, where he shed his good guy persona, became the leader of Los Ingobernables de Japón. So it makes sense that Naito would want to put his mark on New Japan as the leader, as somebody who, while he doesn't seem to care about a lot, still wants people to know that he's in charge, that he is the man, that he's the man. And he proved it in this match, even though we had some interference from the fellow Los Ingobernables de Japón members, Evil and Bushi, who tried to give their leader an advantage, which happened to be the case. Despite a number of near falls from both men, and despite an attempt at a finisher by Goto, Naito managed to reverse it into damn it, his finisher is escaping me at the moment. Anyway, Naito won the finals of the New Japan Cup. He's declared the winner of the tournament, the 2016 tournament. But Los Ingobernables de Japón was not done. They decided to take out their frustrations, I guess, on the Young Lions, and they brought the weakened Goto back into the ring so they can administer even more punishment. But this wouldn't last for long, though, because IWGP Heavyweight Champion Kazuchika Okada came out to make the save, and he helped Goto, and the two men shook hands, which means that I think that any sort of hope for a Goto heel turn might be dashed, or at least halted for a while, because I don't know if New Japan has any plans to turn him yet. Nonetheless, Naito, after initially stating that he would not be challenging for a title, which goes along with his sort of disinterested persona, decided to officially challenge Okada for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship at Invasion Attack on April 10th. So be on the lookout for that particular show, because the only way you can watch it is on New Japan World. NJPWWorld.com is where you can sign up. I believe Brandy and I went over this a couple times before. It's 999 yen a month, meaning that it's roughly $8.50 to $9 depending on the strength of the yen at that time. So keep that in mind. But even at its most expensive, like I think my latest billing was like $9.01. It's still cheaper than the WWE Network, and I'd argue that you still get a lot of high quality wrestling. As far as Invasion Attack is concerned, though, I think that this card is shaping up to be something quite fun, even beyond the Okada Naito match, which I think is going to be a show stealer. You also have Great Bash Heel, aka Togi Makabe, and Tomoaki Honma defending their tag team titles against the Gorillas of Destiny, which is the team of Tama Tonga and Tonga Roa, who is not only Tama Tonga's real-life adopted brother, but also the one formerly known as Camacho in WWE. Believe me, I was surprised to see Camacho in New Japan as well. So Great Bash Heel will be defending their titles against the Young Blood, as it were. In what promises to be a potentially more promising tag team match, the junior tag team titles will be on the line as Matt Sydal and Ricochet defend against Roppongi Vice, aka Rocky Romero and Trent Beretta. I'm a big fan of the junior tag team division because you have these young teams that are hungry to make their mark on pro wrestling, on New Japan, on the sport in general. So I think that if you want fast-paced action, if you want teams duking it out, giving you the most exciting spots, the most fun wrestling, you really can't go wrong with the junior tag division. So be on the lookout for that one. And you also have, which I think is going to be a show stealer in its own right, Kushida defending the Junior Heavyweight Championship against Will Ospreay, the British wrestler who recently signed with New Japan. And it's also been confirmed that he is the newest member of Chaos, which is the group that Okada leads. It was formerly run by Shinsuke Nakamura, but since Nakamura is in WWE now, Okada has kind of taken the reins and has sort of took the group in his direction. So I'm very excited to see this Ospreay Kushida match because I recently got into Ospreay's work. I've watched it on YouTube. I think he's a tremendous wrestler, very quick-paced, very exciting to watch. And that's all you can really ask for, I think, as far as the junior heavyweight style of wrestling is concerned. And I think that you have a fun card shaping up for Invasion Attack. This is not the full card. I'd have to imagine that you're going to have a few throwaway tag team matches, because that seems to be the case for a lot of New Japan shows, regardless of how big they are, whether it's a small no-name show at Korakuen Hall or Wrestle Kingdom. There's always going to be a multi-man tag match that sort of is designed to get everybody on the show, regardless of what storyline they're involved in at the time. So, this is not the final card. As April 10th nears, we're going to have a more solid set of matches to see. And once again, if you want to check out this show, the only way you can do it, at least legally, is by going to njpwworld.com and signing up. It's very affordable at 999 yen. Your bank probably shouldn't give you any problems, because, once again, this is an international purchase. So hopefully you don't have these issues. When I signed up initially, I didn't have an issue with it. In fact, I recently changed my my credit card on the site, and I thought it was going to be a bit of a hassle, because when you're dealing with credit cards on these sites, you can't really turn on Google Translate, so you're kind of going blind unless you know Japanese. But it was pretty easy enough to change my card, so I don't have to worry about my account being deactivated or put on hold. So, good stuff. It's pretty easy to do, pretty easy to sign up, and pretty easy to enjoy some wrestling. And New Japan World always sort of offers freebies. Like, I think just recently they added a bunch of Rev Pro matches from the UK, and which is great for those, because great for people in the States and in Europe, because needless to say, not everyone knows Japanese. Let's put it that way. Not everybody knows Japanese. English commentary is usually preferred. It's welcome. So I think New Japan has recognized this, and they have you covered. They have given you a wealth of content, and I can't say enough good things about the promotion. You know, while I'm very critical about WWE and the decisions it makes, New Japan is still very focused on competition, in-ring action, and generally giving this air of competition that wrestling fans, such as myself, desire. And on that note, I believe we're going to call it a night. Thank you all so much for tuning into the Hold 1005 podcast, and have a great night.